your powerful words and for sharing your inspiring story with us. We truly appreciate your time and wisdom, and we're grateful for your impact, and we hope you continue to make it work. Let's give another well-deserved round of applause.
Begin with the speakers. Please welcome our first speaker of the night, Tarini Swaroop, from 12th grade, Oak Ridge International School, and her speech on the science beyond small talk. Often dismissed as meaningless, small talk has the potential to create deep, lasting connections through psychology, neurobiology, and communication strategies. Let's clap for Tarini as she explores this.
So, what brand is your microwave? Chances are, most of you have no idea what it is. And let's be honest, if someone is asking you such a question, it's probably not because they're passionate about kitchen appliances. They're just desperately trying to keep the conversation alive. It's one of those questions that feels random, yet oddly familiar. The kind that we think of when the awkward silence lasts way too long. And that's what small talk often is. Those quick, surface-level exchanges that we turn to when we're not quite sure what else to say. I'm sure we've all found ourselves in a familiar situation where a friend of ours introduces us to another one of their friends, and suddenly we're left standing there, caught in an uncomfortable space where conversation feels almost obligatory. The silence lingers, and the pressure to say something, anything, starts to build. In moments like these, small talk seems like the only way out. A string of polite yet forgettable remarks about the weather, last night's game, school, or whatever other random thought comes to mind. And that's why small talk has such a bad reputation. It's seen as superficial and meaningless chatter when the awkward silence lasts too long. But small talk is much more than a social formality, because within a 30-second interaction lies the power to create an unforgettable connection. Now, there's this huge misconception about small talk, that it's always about finding common ground, like waiting for the other person to say something familiar, just for you to chime in and say, "Yeah, I've done that too," or "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean." But in reality, this approach feels extremely forced, like trying to win approval of the popular kids at school. And instead of building rapport, the conversation feels unnatural and inauthentic. Now, another huge misconception is that only extroverts are good at small talk. You know those people who walk into a room, speak to 5 strangers, and leave home with 3 new best friends. But in fact, research shows that introverts actually have the upper hand. While the extrovert is filling the air with stories about their weekend plans and their latest hobbies, the introvert is quietly sitting back, just listening and chiming in with a question in between, like, "Oh, tell me more." And with that, the extrovert is left thinking, what a great conversation, because they shared so much about their own personal experiences. While the extrovert is just filling the silence, the introvert barely said a word, and yet somehow they've still won. My point is, small talk isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about saying something that actually matters. A well-timed question or a thoughtful comment can leave a far stronger impression than just filling the silence with words. Because of these misconceptions, it's very easy to dismiss small talk as pointless. But beneath these everyday interactions lies something far more powerful, and that's where science comes in. Research in psychology, linguistics, and even neuroscience reveals that small talk isn't just social fluff. It's wired into how we connect, build trust, and form meaningful relationships. First, we have the social penetration theory. Now, the name sounds quite intense, like the title of a complicated self-help book. But this theory is key to understanding the role science plays in improving our small talk skills. Now, this theory suggests that building connections is like peeling an onion, layer by layer. If we didn't have the weather to talk about, what would we say? According to this theory, conversations like the weather lie at the outermost layer, the surface level, where all anyone really knows is what they can observe. At this stage, people rely on visible cues, like a sports jacket, a school uniform, or anything you can see around you. But these, to make assumptions about each other. But these are just educated guesses. Based on what we observe, a key word or topic often emerges, and this acts as a starting point for the conversation. As the dialogue unfolds, the key word or topic branches out naturally, going into deeper layers of the conversation. And as we keep communicating and go to deeper layers, the conversation only loosely relates to where it began in the first place. Now, imagine walking up to someone at a party and skipping all these outer layers and asking them, "Hey, nice to meet you. So what's your biggest fear in life?" Yeah, that's not small talk. That's just an intervention. Skipping all these outer layers and jumping straight to the core doesn't usually work. Now, another thing about this theory is self-disclosure. Self-disclosure suggests that relationships develop by gradually revealing information about ourselves. So the next time you ever have to meet someone new and talk to a stranger, create a mental list in your head of 5 terms to describe your personal self and 5 terms to describe your professional self. These word cues will, These word cues will act as a key gateway for you to share information about yourself and peel back layers of the onion. But it's not just about what we say, it's about how we say it. Have you ever noticed individuals mirroring each other's speech patterns and body language? That's the communication accommodation theory in action. Whether consciously or unconsciously, individuals often modify their language, tone, and behavior to match that of the person they're speaking with. Now, this theory is based on 2 key strategies: convergence and divergence. Now, convergence happens when individuals adapt their communication style to match that of the other person they're interacting with. For example, you're speaking to someone new and they're more softly spoken and reserved. Instead of directly launching into a loud, fast-paced conversation, lowering your tone and speaking more calmly can create a sense of mutual understanding and create a greater sense of comfort between the 2 people. Divergence, on the other hand, happens when individuals intentionally try to show the differences in their communication style. For example, you're talking to someone about your holiday and trip plans, and the other person starts responding with technical jargon and academic language. This creates a huge disconnect between the 2 people. In the context of small talk, using and applying convergence effectively can transform a 30-second interaction, into a meaningful connection. But what's even more fascinating is that these interactions aren't just social habits. They're deeply tied into what's happening in the brain. Now, neuroscience shows that small talk activates key regions in the brain that are responsible for social bonding, trust, and even memory formation. Beneath what seems like casual chatter, the brain is at hard work, releasing chemicals, forming associations, and shaping the way we perceive the people around us. As we communicate, our brains are forming a neurochemical cocktail that shapes how we feel, either good or bad. And we translate these inner feelings and experiences into words, sentences, and stories. For example, feel-good conversations stimulate higher levels of dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. And this chemical boost not only enhances and lifts our mood, but it also signals the brain to that the conversation is safe and rewarding. And with that, we're more likely to trust the other person, open up further, and engage in more deeper, more meaningful relationships. Apart from the science behind it, there are many unconventional yet effective strategies that show us how we can improve our small talk skills that are built upon these scientific principles. First, we have the primary effect. Now, the primary effect suggests that individuals tend to remember the first interaction most vividly. And this makes the opening moments of a conversation extremely crucial. So instead of asking something generic, like, how are you, or how was your day, try asking something that's more unexpected, like an observation or a unique question. Or to take it a step further, something that sparks curiosity and invites a story. For example, you're at a networking event at school, and someone asks you, what do you want to do in the future? Now, you could give a standard answer, and the conversation fizzles out pretty quickly. Now, imagine instead they ask you, what's something you're passionate about that nobody else knows? Now, both questions are pretty similar, but with the second one, the conversation takes a turn. You're no longer just sharing surface-level information, but you're sharing a piece of yourself. Next, we have the 2-minute rule. Now, the 2-minute rule states that for the first 2 minutes of a conversation, you focus entirely on the other person. Give them undivided attention, ask open-ended questions, and just listen actively. And by doing this, without interrupting them and just listening to them, they're left thinking the conversation is extremely memorable, and you improve your listening habits over time, and you learn so much more about the other person. Last, we have the echo technique. Now, this technique involves repeating words and phrases from the other person's last statement. So with that, for example, someone is talking to you and says, I'm swamped with college apps lately, college applications. Instead of just nodding your head and agreeing, you could respond with something like, are you struggling more with essays or juggling the deadlines? With that, you're not just echoing their words, but you're adding a thoughtful follow-up, and you're encouraging them to inviting them to share more about their own experience. It shows genuine interest, it keeps the conversation flowing naturally, and it allows them to be more comfortable and open to deeper, more meaningful conversations. Small talk isn't just about breaking the ice. It's about bridging gaps between strangers and fostering networks that last. In a world where genuine conversations are more valuable than ever, mastering the science of small talk can ensure that conversations don't just start. They continue to grow into meaningful connections that transcend the boundaries of time, long after the first hello. And if I could ask you to take away just one message from this talk, it would be to avoid asking someone what their microwave brand is. Thank you.